Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to watch 90 Day Fiancé. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, everything that I say on these reaction videos is completely speculative based on very little information. Let's watch.
I was very surprised that he has just become a father of two children, which I never really expected. I mean, he's kind of childish, like until now.
Okay, so his college and high school friends are saying that he was childish and has been childish, and they're surprised that he settled down and is responsible or has children and expects to be responsible. I don't know what that says. It certainly fits with my running hypothesis that he suffers from dependent schemas resulting from feeling like he is incompetent and as if he is a child. Dependent people often, not always, will think of themselves as children. They will say, I'm 25, but I don't feel like I'm 25. I feel like I'm 7. I feel like I need people to help me. I feel like I don't know what to do. I feel like other people have everything figured out, but I do not. So it certainly fits with that hypothesis, given that his friends are saying that. But I don't know, a lot of childhood friends will say that about your friends. You know, when I was in my 20s and I had friends who were getting married and having kids, I could not imagine them being married and having kids and being responsible. It just did not seem possible. But, usually people rise to the occasion and hopefully become a responsible adult upon the necessity of that. So it's not unusual for high school friends of Jihoon to be surprised.
When you sleep, I'm just,
So, instead of using masturbating to other women, that in my head is cheating.
It's cheating?
Yeah, that's cheating.
All right, we haven't seen this, I think, on this show before. So we are experiencing something that a lot of couples will experience, which is that one member discloses or is caught having looked at images online, sexual images online, and masturbating. I don't know if YouTube is going to flag me at this point, but that's what they're talking about. And for Jihoon, he was under the assumption that that was okay. I don't know if I showed the clip, but he said that they don't have sex as often as he would like. I don't know how often that is. I don't think I need to know, but he's saying it's not enough. And so when she's sleeping at night, he is doing that. And she found out about it. Deavan found out about it. Well, obviously, he's telling her, so she found out that way. And she's saying that is, to her, that's cheating, and she doesn't want him to do that. So these are important conversations that people should have early in a relationship, maybe well before you get married, because essentially it is an opinion or a value that people will have. Some people will consider it cheating and some people will not. Some people will do it together. There's a wide variety of options available to people, and all are okay. The issue is that if you enter into a relationship and you don't have that conversation, then you're in a situation like this, where he could very validly say, well, I don't consider it cheating, so I don't know what to tell you. And she's like, well, I do consider it cheating, so I don't know what to tell you. And both, in my view, are okay. They're both entitled to their position. Now, often what will happen is that society will pressure the Jihoons of the world because we tend to be sex negative, and we will say he's disgusting and he needs to stop. Things are changing ever so slowly, but that's usually the case. Instead of seeing it from a more ethical point of view, which is that both are okay, and now they're going to enter into a conversation. Maybe Jihoon can convince her, or someone can convince her to change her mind on that. Or maybe the other way around. Maybe Jihoon can be convinced, or maybe for Deavan, it's completely a deal breaker and there's just no flexibility. Maybe for Jihoon, there's no flexibility there. So either is okay. And I wish that people would have more conversations like this from the beginning, because let's say that for Jihoon, he's just like, look, this is a big deal to me. I'm going to do it occasionally. I don't know how often, but it's a thing that I do. And for her, she's like, total deal breaker. that's completely cheating. I've had experiences like that in the past with past relationship, totally off the table. Then they might say, I guess we're incompatible in that way. Is this a deal breaker for our relationship? We can imagine other kinds of deal breakers like this, like the issue of having kids. I want to have kids 100%. I don't want to have kids 100%. Incompatibility, maybe not good for a long-term relationship. Or I want to live in Korea, or I want to live in the United States. And total deal breaker. Okay, so these are compatibilities that need to be discussed. Given sex negativity, and I don't know about Korea. I don't know how sex negative Korea is. Let me know in the comments if you do know. But given sex negativity in the United States anyway, we tend not to talk about these things in the beginning of a relationship, which need to be talked about.
To me, I consider anything that hurts the other person to be cheating. And he was looking at these photos when I'm standing right there. And it's like, have some decency. I'm your wife. I'm right here. Look at me.
Okay, so two things that are going on right here. Both she is entitled to. One is she's saying, look, if you're going to do it, don't do it in front of me. That doesn't make me feel good. Okay, that makes sense. And if they want to talk about that, that's okay. The other thing she's saying is, what about me? This is a frequent feeling that people have, which people are entitled to, I want to say. But there's different points of view on this. For some people in Deavan's position, they'll say, like, is when you look at that, does that mean that I am inadequate? And for a lot of Jihoons in the world, they will say, no, this has nothing to do with how I love you and I find you very attractive. And this has nothing to do with that. It's just something that I like to do, like a massage, a self-massage, if you will. And it doesn't have anything to do with that. On the other hand, for some people, it is about that. It is like, you are inadequate, and so I'm doing this other thing because I don't like you and you don't measure up. But that's not usually the case. So sometimes that can be cleared up with a lot of conversation and maybe some reassurance. But this is interesting. The key, though, as a therapist, is that I don't impose any kind of value on the two of them, because I don't care. I don't care what they do. I do care, and I am tasked as a couples therapist with helping people talk about it, and that's what I do for people. But it can get a little hairy because given the way society sees these kinds of things, like I said before, the Deavans of the world will usually feel like they have more license. Depending on the situation, honestly, it can go the other way for sure. There's a lot of Deavans of the world who feel like they can't say anything because there's just this extreme normalization of the practice. So it can go either way. The point is that me as a therapist, I have to gauge that. I have to gauge, let's say Deavan and Jihoon are in my office and they're talking about this. And Deavan's coming out strong and she's very sure of herself and she's saying, no, this isn't going to work. And I'm facilitating the conversation. And then Jihoon very quickly says, oh, okay, I won't do it. Well, I'd be worried because in that situation, two options might be happening. So there's three options. One is that he's like, okay, no big deal, I won't do it, and everything will be okay. Not likely, but it could happen. The second option is that he's just saying he will stop doing it, even though he won't stop doing it. And then we're going into a situation where he legitimately is, by any empirical observation, harming his wife by lying to her. As soon as you start lying to someone about doing something, then yeah, you're harming them. So up until this point, one could argue he hasn't harmed her because he didn't know she didn't want him to do that. As soon as he starts lying about it, then that's a problem. The third possibility is that he might say yes and intends to not do it, but really is going to have a hard time not doing it because it might be his one way of getting his needs met. So if it's the first option and he's cool with it and he's adjustable and he's flexible and he's like, yeah, okay, no problem, I won't do that anymore, then we're good. Not likely. But if it's the other two, like I'm going to lie or I'm going to white knuckle it as I try to resist something that I really like to do and deny my needs and, I don't know, suffer in a certain way, then I, as a therapist, it's within their interest that I intervene and talk to the Jihoon in my office and say, are you sure you really don't want to do it? Is that really what you're saying here? Because for a lot of people, that'd be a hard thing to just give up all of a sudden. So on the flip side, if they're having a conversation and Jihoon is like, look, it's normal, honey, don't worry about it. Everyone does it. Like, don't be such a prude. And then the Deavans of the world in my office will say, okay, that's fine. And I'm like, okay, is she really flexible, or is she just saying that and lying, or is she saying that because she feels like pressure when deep down she really, really does not like it? So I might have to help someone to speak their mind and feel okay to speak their mind. But usually what I find with couples is the more they talk about it, they can eliminate a lot of the misconceptions and maybe even adjust it a little bit, and everyone can be happy. There's usually a place where everyone can be happy. I will also say there's some times where that's not the case, and you have completely rigid points of view on either side, and they just never see eye to eye, and they conflict about it their entire relationship. I've seen that before too. It's not pleasant. This is why it's important to have these conversations prior to getting married.
I'm just only one. She never, maybe 3 months, 2 months, she didn't sex with me.
For 2 to 3 months.
Yeah,
So if I don't have sex with you, you're gonna cheat on me?
never.
So this is a good conversation. It's pretty awkward, but it's a good conversation to have. I think they need to talk about this a lot longer. For Deavan, she's asking him, because you do these sort of things, does this mean that you're going to cheat on me, or you have cheated on me? And he's saying, no, I haven't. And then she asks, have you ever cheated on anyone before? And he's like, yeah, once. I was with someone for 2 or 3 months. We didn't have sex, and so I cheated on her. Now, Jihoon should really expand on that. What I'm guessing is that he didn't, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if he cheated on her not because they didn't have sex, but because they were drifting apart, or they weren't really into each other, or something along those lines. Something that would differentiate the situation between him and Deavan. So Deavan now has a logical question. So wait, if we don't have sex for 2 or 3 months, you're going to cheat on me? And he says no. So they should continue talking about this and clarify. This is why when people talk about recently I was ranting about people that will put down people when they're dating when they talk about their exes. They'll say if someone talks about their ex when you're dating them, particularly in the beginning of the dating relationship, that's a no-go. That's a red flag. You should run away from that person. I'm always like, why? Like, if you just got out of a significant relationship, or it's just your ex-partner is a big part of your life, like you spent 10 years with them and you traveled the world with them, and a lot of your stories involve them, but you're no longer with them and you don't want to be with them anymore, then you're just going to not talk about them. Like there's just this big black hole of like you just never, it's like Voldemort, just never mention their name. Now, as if you're dating someone and you don't want to talk about your exes and you want to have the fantasy, I suppose, that you've never been in other relationships, then that's okay. And if two people are compatible in that way. But there's this internet wisdom out there that's just like, anyone who talks about their exes there's a problem automatically, or something pathological about that person. You should run. My contention is, if someone talks about their ex, even if they're crying about their ex on the first date, it might actually mean they are someone you should stick around with, potentially, because they're open, they're honest, they can express themselves, they can cry, and that's okay. That's someone you want to be with. Everyone out there, think about all the partners you've had in your life who have not expressed emotions well or often enough. And then you date someone, and in the beginning of the relationship, they start crying about an ex. Are you going to, that's a double standard right there. You want people to express their emotions, but not about that. And I think it has to do with people essentially being jealous. They're dating someone and they have this fantasy that they've never been with anyone else. Of course, intellectually, they understand that's not true, but they want to believe they've never been in love before, they've never had sex before, they've never been with anyone before. And to talk about the ex sort of blows that fantasy. I find that older people dating, 30s, 40s, 50s, are much more open to talking about their exes on the first date because they're more realistic about that kind of thing, and they've had more life to live, and they've had more relationships. So anyway, it's good that they're having this conversation, because when you have conversations about these past relationships, it does help to feel safe or to clarify things. So it's a good conversation that they're having.
I never cheat on you.
But you cheated on your ex.
Hearing that Jihoon cheated on his ex because she didn't sleep with him for 2 months is really worrying me. We've spent longer time apart than that.
과거는 중요하지 않고 지금 너와 나 생각만 하자. 그때 얘기는 꺼내고 싶지 않아.
So this is something that a lot of cast members will do on this show that I find to be ineffective and not a good tactic, which is Jihoon is now, oh, okay, I cheated on someone in the past, and good for him for admitting it. And now Deavan is scared. She's upset with me, and I don't think I'm going to cheat on Deavan. I don't want to cheat on Deavan. I have 2 kids with her. I don't have those kinds of urges. I'm in love. I want to be with her. I want to build a good family. So I want her to stop thinking about this. But now somehow she thinks I'm going to cheat on her or already have cheated on her. I don't understand. And I think Devan's being a little forceful about this. I don't think it's fair to just ask someone, have you cheated in the past? And they're like, yeah, there was this one time I wasn't in love with her. We didn't have sex for a long time and I did cheat on her, but I would never cheat on you. I don't think it's fair to say like, well, now you're on the spot and you got to prove to me you're never going to cheat on me. Like, I don't think that that's a fair kind of emotion. It's okay for her to be like, well, I have insecurities. Can you help me out with that? That'd be totally fair. But to somehow blast him for something that he did in the past, and has Deavan never, I mean, infidelity is very common. So I wouldn't be surprised if Deavan also has cheated in the past in some way, shape, or form, of which there are many shapes and forms of infidelity. But anyway, but I don't recommend people do this kind of tactic that Jihoon is doing, which other people have done, which is just like, let's move on. Let's move into the future. Let's not worry about the past. What he should be doing is explaining, and if I were there, I would help them because this is a very common conversation. Essentially right now, Deavan is feeling scared. So I'd want to elicit that from Deavan of what emotion are you feeling? And she'd probably say like, well, I'm really concerned. Okay, concern isn't necessarily a primary emotion. What's underneath that concern? Eventually, I'm guessing she would admit that she is afraid that he is going to cheat. And then I would say, okay, if he cheats, what's the worry there? Well, we got STIs. He's going to leave me. He could get someone pregnant. There's all these fears I have. Okay, that's totally normal. It's totally justifiable, totally valid. You have those fears. Okay, Jihoon, she is afraid. How can you reassure her? What can we do to reassure her right now? Then we would focus on that instead of her accusing him of possibly cheating on her, which he's like, I don't know where this is coming from. And then him saying, let's just shut up, or you need to shut up. Let's not talk about the past.
Past doesn't matter. Just think of you and me now.
Once a cheater, always a cheater.
This is another internet wisdom that is completely untrue. I will say that infidelity is very common, but this whole once a cheater, always a cheater is empirically not true. Now, infidelity research is actually hard to research because you have to ask people. There's no way to empirically measure if people have cheated on someone or not. You have to ask them. And most of the time when you cheat on someone, you're not caught, and so you have to self-report. So psychological research, we don't have invisible cameras following people around, seeing if they're cheating. We have to ask them. So it gets weird. You'll get like ranges of prevalence of cheating from like 10% to 90%. You'll be like, have you ever cheated on someone before? And some research, some studies will find like 10% of people say, yes, I've cheated before. And then another study of 90%. So I've done whole deep dives on that. And you can listen to those audio episodes. Some of them are patron only, I believe, or you can just search on my channel for infidelity. And I talk about the research and about the prevalence rates and why people do it. But this notion of once a cheater, always a cheater is a little silly. I get her fear. That's fine. She can be afraid. I want to be clear. She can be afraid. She can be concerned. She could be like, oh, you've cheated before. Are you going to cheat on me? That's totally normal to have that kind of connection and that kind of fear. If someone has never cheated in their life, they have had 10 relationships and they've never cheated before, then chances are they're not going to cheat on you. They might cheat on you, but chances are they're not. If they cheated in the past, that might raise the chance of it, maybe, but I don't know. So for her to say that, that's not helpful. Now, I don't trust Jihoon with the ability to somehow navigate that. Plus, he's being attacked right now. He's basically being accused of cheating on her when he says he hasn't. Who knows? But let's just go with that he hasn't. He's being accused that he's going to cheat on her, which let's just go with the notion that he doesn't think he's going to cheat on her just because he did something in the past one time. So, I don't expect he's going to react well to this. Now, I will say that there are certain personality traits or relational traumas that can cause people to cheat more often than others. There are conditions based on our relational traumas that can motivate us, and it's almost always motivation that is out of dysfunction and pathology. For example, some people will cheat out of passive aggression. They were never allowed to be angry growing up, and the only way they can express anger toward their spouse is through hidden ways, through passive ways. And so they will cheat as a very pathological way of trying to communicate their anger to their spouse. That's actually a very common cause of infidelity. Another one is when people feel very distant and rejected sometimes, they will cheat as a way of trying to gain some kind of love and attention, some evidence that they're lovable. That's another reason. Another reason why people will cheat is because they've never gotten to know themselves and they don't really know who they are and what they want because of the way their parents treated them growing up. And so when they're in a relationship, they don't really know if they want to be in the relationship, but they're in a relationship. And then someone else comes along and says, hey, let's roll around. And because they don't really know who they are and what they want, they're just like, okay, sure. And they just are sort of drifting through life, being pushed around by the wind, and they never really know what they want. And all of those are born out of pathology and a lot of relational traumas. So some of those people who have cheated in the past can be predicted to cheat in the future if they had some sort of pathology that led to it. Now, some people with what I believe to be Jihoon's schemas, I don't know, total speculation of dependent schema, they can be prone to cheating because of sometimes they're prone to passive aggression. Sometimes they don't really know who they are. They're that sort of person. Sometimes someone will come along and dominate them relationally, and then they just go along with whatever they do because they're used to doing that. So I don't know. But just this blanket thing of like if you've ever cheated in the past, because just statistically, if you're 35 and you're dating other 35-year-olds, there's a good chance that literally every single person you are dating has cheated in the past. So are we to believe that every single person that you're dating is going to cheat on you? I don't think so.
일단 사기꾼은 항상 사기꾼.
To find out that he was unfaithful in his past is way worse than any naked photo. Now my concern level went from 80% to 120%.
Which again is totally fine. If she is afraid and wants reassurance, totally. But how do you go about that? Do you own your feelings and say like, well, I don't know, you seem like you wouldn't cheat on me. You haven't given me any reason to believe you would cheat on me. But given that you've cheated in the past, I'm now afraid. And honey, is there anything that you could do to reassure me that you're not going to cheat on me? Or please tell me if you ever have, if you ever start going down that road, because I want to fix our relationship so that you don't do that. Certainly you can have that conversation. But to just accuse him and say like, you're a cheater, always a cheater, you're going to cheat on me, you're a piece of crap. Like, what?
Just trust me, right? 내가 만약에 너를 사랑하지 않았더라면 난 콘돔을 썼을 거야.
Okay, so that's the other tactic, the just trust me line, which I think is fair. I don't think it's fair for Deavan to accuse him, but he's not addressing her fears. Just trust me. Don't, move on. Suppress your emotions. That's not going to work. Now, Jihoon, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't know what's going on inside of her right now because she seems angry on the surface, but from my experience, people in Deavan's position are actually afraid and quite scared. So, but then he says, let me decipher what he said. If I didn't love you, I would have worn a condom. So, what? How is Deavan going to react to that? I mean, it's a valiant effort. He's trying to reassure her that he loves her and that thus won't cheat on her. But that's the first thing that comes to his mind is, well, obviously I love you because I didn't wear a condom that one time and then you got pregnant. What?
If I didn't love you, I would have used a condom.
I'm just, to be honest, tell you 100%. I'm never cheat on Deavan. Because I'm dead, I have a family, Deavan is my wife. 솔직히 진짜 존나 짜증나요.
Okay, I want you to delete the photos. All of them.
All right, well, it seems to have reassured Deavan. I don't know how that is possible, but it seems to have worked. So they have their own language. Good for them. And then she says, okay, fine, but I want you to delete all those photos. All right. What does that mean, though? Does that mean no more of that activity? Does that mean just the photos? What does that mean? It's important for them to have an elaborate conversation where both of them have power to come to the table and say, this is what I need, this is what I want, these are my emotions about it, let's have a conversation. So I'm guessing what's going to happen is he's going to say, okay, I'll delete it, and then he's either going to find another way of doing that activity online and with himself, and he'll get caught and she'll be upset and he'll say, well, you just told me to get rid of the photos, instead of them having a very ongoing, rich conversation about this topic.
I will cut my...
That's a bit extreme.
I do believe Jihoon loves me, but I just still have this feeling that I can't shake, that he wasn't faithful to me when we were long distance.
Okay. Again, it's okay that you have that worry. We don't want to translate that worry into assuredness that you're right. It's okay to say, I'm just unsure if he was faithful to me. I just don't know. I have this fear. I have no evidence that he cheated on me, but I'm worried. Totally fine. Take ownership for your feelings, present them to your spouse, and say, please help me with this. Not your fault. Please help me. Because you love me, you will help me, right? And then he will. He'll try to help you. But what often on this show will happen and in life is I have a gut feeling he cheated on me. Therefore, he did cheat on me. Therefore, I'm going to be angry at him and I'm going to yell at him. It's not helpful. If you want someone to distance themselves from you and have a greater risk of cheating on you, then that's what you do. I actually have a song about this on Spotify. You can go to Bread Knife Incident on Spotify, and it's my song Connected. That song is all about what I just talked about. All right. Well, if you haven't become a patron of the podcast yet, you can do so now. Also, if you already are a patron and you can switch from monthly to annual, Patreon added this new feature where you can get a discount if you sign up for annual membership. And the reason why we're trying to get people to do annual is because it's much easier for us to plan for the future when we have annual as opposed to monthly. Monthly, it's like you just have no idea what's going to happen month to month. But with annual, it's like, okay, I guess we can plan for the future based on that sort of thing. And it's a win-win because you get a discount. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.